Morning. Wow. Good morning.
Hey, Chiquota.
Good morning. Good, beautiful morning. Hi, Patrina, Monique, Angela,
Morning.
Ariel, Sarah. Good morning. Shaquita, Daphne, Ollie. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, Samantha. Hey, Adrian. Good morning. We are so happy, so fortunate to be here with you for yet another weekly morning coffee. Good morning as people are arriving. Thank you for your patience too in the wait room. We are here on this Wednesday, June 10th. Who can believe that it's June 10th already? For our weekly morning coffee call. My name is Lisa Payton Kerr, CEO and founder, president of the Foundation for Black Women's Wellness. And I'm here with our team this morning to welcome you into what we hope is always a joyful, peaceful, and intriguing space for you to be in as Black women. Our mission is to empower a generation of well Black women, and we created these morning coffee talks as a space, as an hour in our day weekly to come together, to center ourselves, to harness our collective power, to learn, to grow, to listen, and to go back into the world more refreshed than we were when we arrived. So we thank you for coming back with us. We are here for part 2 of a very beautiful discussion we started last week with our special guest, Morathi Adams, or M, as she is commonly known, CEO and Executive Director of Freedom Inc., and Brandi Grayson, Founder, CEO, and President of Urban Triage. I'll say a little bit more about their backgrounds for those who may be joining us for the first time, but first, please make sure that you mute yourself. You may already be muted, but do shower us with questions. We love it when you ask questions. We love your comments. We will ask for your engagement throughout this call today. We'll be checking in on you too. And as we begin, just go ahead in the chat box, guess, and tell us how you're doing today. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being, you know, I'm struggling to be here today, and 10 being I'm just on fire today, tell us where you are numerically. And as I said to our guests when we opened the call, we are here today on grace and mercy and with high expectation. And it is really important for us to be surrounded by you as we all continue to push forward through what has been a very strenuous and challenging time. It continues to be strenuous and challenging, but also we see opportunities for transformation. So we're in this together today as we take on all these things and as our community continues to push and to heal. I want to specifically acknowledge Aaliyah Stevenson, our Chief Programs Officer, who is the co-host of Morning Coffee today, and she will give you some updates on our small business highlights, which we encourage you all to take action on. Go ahead, Aaliyah.
Yes, so today we have 2. We would like to share with you the Movement Fund. This fund is going to go to support protests, youth organizing, building analysis, activities, all sorts of things. So shout out Urban Triage for putting that together for our youth, and we'll put that information in the chat box for you so you can give. Our youth are doing incredible work in the community and really leading all the adults in some ways in the community. So we want to continue to support that. And then also Black Lives Matter yard sign. It's a yard sign that features the logos of 5 Madison area Black-led nonprofits, including the Foundation for Black Women's Wellness, Freedom Inc., Urban Triage, the Progress Center for Black Women, and the Featherstone Flamingos. So we're going to put that information up there again as well, just for a visual representation of the support that we provide not only to those local organizations, Black-owned organizations, but also to Black Lives and to the movement. So I'll pop those right in the chat box as we speak.
Awesome.
Thank you, Lisa.
Oh, you're so welcome. And we already have feedback. You know what we talked about last week is this group is so inspiring for us because your ratings on how you're doing are so high, and we love that. You know, this has been such a trying time, but your answers indicate that you are doing the work of pouring into yourself and protecting your peace and working at least actively to be your most well self. We see 7s, we see 9s. Someone says, I'm actually at an 8 as I started back in the week. Does wonders. I think she's talking about the gym tam, still heavy-hearted, but doing what I can to be well. We're happy to see those ratings. So you all know that we're here to talk about Black women healing as we fight. And that's so important of a conversation to us in the backdrop of the work that we do at the Foundation for Black Women's Wellness, which is to empower Black women to really control our lives, to define our lives, to shape our lives, and to move in ways that build our ability to persist, not only to survive, but to thrive. And in the backdrop of the racial inequalities that we have lived with for centuries and even to this day, it's truly important to understand the impact of those stressors on our bodies. So when we came up with this topic, healing as we fight, we're doing so with the understanding that all of these continuous struggles that we face have an impact mentally, spiritually, physically. I was talking to someone else the other day about a concept, allostatic load, and raise your hand if you've heard the term allostatic load. As we talk about health quality, chronic illness, mental health, and all the layers of stress piled upon our communities with economic gaps, education gaps, all of it manifests in our bodies. So allostatic load really refers to the cumulative effect of stress on our bodies from the point of conception to where we are now, and what that means on a cellular level for us, and how that affects our physical functioning, our mental health, and all those pieces. So it is vitally important that we consciously engage in actions that counter the effects of stress in our lives, and that we're conscious that stress has an impact physically in so many ways as we think about the conditions that our community disproportionately struggles with: heart disease, diabetes, stroke, cancer. We have to be ever hyper vigilant of consciously doing the work every day of putting our wellness first, even as we fight systems and structures and principalities, as the old church people used to say from the scripture, as we fight forces to secure our freedom in our lives. So this call is really about that. But last week, there was so much excitement about this conversation, not only because Morathi and Brandi, we know you came for them, but what they shared in their journey of healing and how it impacts the work. We want to ask the both of them, first of all, how you're doing, and then secondly, why do you think this concept of Black women healing as we fight resonated so strongly with us as Black women? But first, how you doing? Y'all been out there. Let's start with Brandi.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, I'm doing okay this morning. I got up and worked out. I find that the days that I work out, I do better. I'm able to handle a little bit more stress. I'm able to stay grounded. And days I don't, I'm just off kilter. So I really try my best to work out. I do experience anxiety a lot, which is part of my trauma, right? So some of the stuff that I've learned about myself in the last 2 years is that I'm a left focused person, left brain focused. And it's probably a result of growing up in chaos, right? Always having to pay attention to details, pay attention to my surroundings. So that causes me, in the sense that part of my brain is always lit. And that's the part that tells you okay, this needs to happen next. It listens for sounds, it listens to the environment. And your right side of your brain is where you relax and find peace. And if you didn't have to get up, if you're a right side person, you would prefer to be in the house and just say, I'm not doing anything, right? So my left side of my brain is always going. And the beauty of it, right, because there's always beauty in chaos and trauma, is that it makes me a hell of a program manager, right? So that's why you can see us moving 100 projects at once and seeing the details, because my brain sees things that people may not even think about until later, right? But my brain's like, oh, we need to do this, get that person, call that person, pull this. Ask April, she's often like, okay, can you slow down a bit, right? My team is like, can you slow down a bit? I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, all right. So part of my work in self-care has been focusing on the right side of my brain, trying to get a balance, right? Because if the left side's always active, you're you're just not paying attention, and it creates a lot of cortisol and hormones in your body. So I've been practicing that. I've just became aware of this as it relates to who I am. And that's just to say that the things that shape us, whether they're traumatic or not, also benefits us and supports us in thriving. So I'm doing pretty good. There's some stress stuff happening around us, but my ancestors never fail. So what we're creating today is the possibility of transformative justice, as well as the possibility of moving people that we need to move in the direction that benefits multiple Black organizations. So that's what we're creating today.
Awesome. And why do you think Healing as We Fight has resonated so strongly with Black women?
Well, because I think that, I know that Black women, we know innately, whether it's subconsciously or not, we know that everything that's created in this world is birthed through us, right? So there's nothing that exists in this world, on this planet, that's not birthed through us. And in order for us to birth a new dawn, a paradigm shift, we know innately that we have to start healing holistically so that we can embody that in which we desire to see in the world. Because if Black women don't embody it, our children don't embody it, we can't, in a sense, lead our men to embody it, right? Like, we are the light in darkness. We have always been the light in darkness, and it's a hell of a responsibility, and it's a hell of a cross to bear. But that is the dichotomy of divinity and the spirit and power we carry. And through healing, I've realized that every time I heal a piece of me and that hurt little girl inside of me that's been through hell and back, I become more powerful. I become more rooted. And what I'm able to create through the healing is unstoppable, right? Like, people are like, how can you do this? Shh, it's the healing, right? Because I end up being able to command and speak into existence that thing that I say I desire. So if I say chair fall, the chair falls, right? Because it is the power of healing that connects you higher to your higher self, and the power that comes with connecting to your higher self. So that's why I think innately we all know, as Black women, the change in this world begins with us. This world started with us, and it just is what it is.
Amen. Who else wants to say amen with me this morning? Amen. All right, how are you doing? And why do you think Healing as We Fight has resonated so much with all of us?
Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, I'm good. I'm a little sleepy. It's been a very, very busy so many days, and I have allergies. And my
Yes.
allergies make me sleepy. But outside of that, I feel grounded, both feet on the ground, and yeah, I'm generally feeling good. And why do I think that the conversation really resonated? Well, I'll say it resonates for me because I often don't get, like, there really isn't a lot of space for us who are responsible for so much to think about just what we need. And in fact, I have felt selfish when I thought about me. I have felt like I wasn't really fully, doing all that I was supposed to do when I thought about me and what I needed. And I even think, just in terms of my movement work, I've had some really big, deep heartbreaks over the last years as it relates to, like, my mother transitioning, my grandmother transitioning, and a bunch of other things, and not even really given space, for me to fully deal with and sit with what that meant for me. And so I think the conversation really speaks to not just that for me, but what that is for other people. I think many of us are parents or caregivers or partners or leaders or respected people in community who always show up. And I think we know that that is so important for advancing toward liberation and freedom. And so we do that and we stay to that. And many times that means that we put ourselves on the back burner, and patriarchy teaches us that we're less important. And patriarchy has taught us that, our role is to be subservient, right? I do believe we show up and be in service to movement, but not to be subservient to the broader movement. But I think we really internalize that message. So I'm always excited at the opportunity to be with other folks, Black women in particular, who are thinking about, how are we going to heal? Because I think what Brandi points out is that we're going to be here, right? And I can tell you the amount of movement space and freedom spaces, et cetera, that I've been in with Black women who are not on their path to healing, and how they still show up, and they show up as tornadoes, right? And if we don't learn how to heal, people then have to survive us, right? So it ain't just what we want, it's what we also do to others, and also Black women and our children and other people. And so this is why I think this is such a timely conversation, because, you know, when we heal, the movement is better, the movement is stronger also.
Oh, amen. I have sparks flying out of the top of my head right now just listening to you all, and I've been trying to type some of what you both said in the chat so we can hold on to that, and we will attribute those words to you later. You touched on so much, and I don't want to quote who these words are from, but we are trained to feel guilty about taking care of ourselves. You know, the strong Black woman syndrome that has been well documented, and the way we're groomed and raised just out of our historical experience of having to show up, having to be responsible for the survival of ourselves, our children, our men. It's ingrained in our DNA from our very American and Western experience of survival. But we have to learn and practice that self-care is not selfish. Self-care is not self-indulgent. It's a necessity for survival and for life. And we deserve life. We were placed here to live and to thrive. And I believe, as the foundation believes, that self-care is one of our loudest protests. So if you're engaging in self-care actively, you are protesting in a way that our nation, our community, our children, our families need you to do. So to you ladies who are prioritizing that, and all of us struggling to balance that as we lead, let's continue. I have a very different question for you, because in the intensity of the work, and I have to commend you both for your stamina. We've watched the week of action that kind of concluded this weekend, but not really concluded because the action continues. But it was such an intense week. You all were everywhere. You all were on the highways and the byways. I was honking to you from one side of the road and the other side of the road, and texting April to say, make sure y'all get out the way when I'm coming down. Watching how you've organized and activated the youth, how you've pulled a collective of our community together so powerfully to stand in unity off the strength of the bigger message, but also your message and who you are. That's a lot to sustain. And in it, it's rough, it's difficult, it's challenging, it's taxing, but there has to be beauty in it as well. So I want to know, where have you experienced the most beauty in your work over this last week? Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brandi.
Go ahead.
Look, Em always want to throw me out first. You go. But the most beautiful and most powerful, thing that was created out of this week and a half has been the community presence. Like, real talk, y'all. Like, whether we're protesting, we've had hundreds of cars, hundreds of people follow us without knowing where the hell we're going, right? Landing in front of Gloria Reyes' house. People like, oh shit, where we at, right? Showing up at the sheriff's house. People are like, oh, didn't know he was coming to the Popo house. And the beauty of that is just trusting Black women, right? And trusting that protest is about marketing, right? It is in the simplest terms. It's about getting out in front and saying this thing is happening, and you're going to pay attention to it whether you like it or not. And we're going to continue to make you pay attention to it and take up space whether you like it or not, because that's incongruent to white supremacy attributes and how we are socially constructed. So for another example is the defund me, that the big yellow written in front of MLK, right? That's huge, right? And people are mad. White people are pissed off. They like, who gave them permission? Who do they think they are? Who are they running? And what we're saying is that we're here to take up space that you said that we couldn't take up no more. And with the awakening of Blackness and what's happening across the world, is like things, the epiphany, those moments, those aha moments are happening for our people, and they're realizing, hey, I've been hoodwinked, I've been bamboozled, right? So seeing those like having those conversations and seeing those moments happen for Black people and for white people, because I've been engaging in conversations with white people that thought, this is stupid, and now they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I've been so naive, right? So I feel like that is super powerful, in that, creating this movement where white people are understanding that their privilege within these systems and these institutions is what keeps these systems moving. And within these systems, they have to be the front line, right? There's things white people can do and say that I can never do, or M can never do, right? And say, there's moments within our protesting where white people have to be the front line because police would treat them different than they treat us, right? And that same conversation is what we have with the group of community members who have surrounded like that, responded to our call to action to be present for our youth. And that is their understanding too, right? Like, we're here to stand behind the youth, not in front of the youth, not to guide the youth, but to trust, right? And to provide mentorship in the shoulder if they need to vent, if they need to rage. But we're not here to say, don't do this, don't do that, because that is part of white supremacy and part of Black people being unable to be fully self-expressed, right? And we have 500 years of pain, outrage, trauma, uncertainty, and lack of freedom, right? Whether we're enslaved in chains or not, Black people have not been free since this whole white thing took place in this world, right? So a lot of folks are just waking up to the fact, like, well, I'm not free. I thought I was free. But freedom actually means that you get to self-actualize how you see fit without being dictated or controlled from the top bottom. So that's the most powerful thing. I see it in children. I see it in white folks. I see it within our Supporting Healthy Black Families training. We had a powerful meeting yesterday. They're on fire. They're ready. They're present. The shift that's happening within us, like April would tell us, like in that meeting, I'm like, this shit's working, right? Because you say you want to create a vision and you don't know whether or not it's going to work. And then it starts showing up and you're like, we on the right track. So it's been really powerful.
Wow, that's beautiful. All of it, the youth, the community, white folks. Leleda said in a call yesterday, she's tired of the term white allies. She wants white warriors. And to see white warriors emerging, one of the most beautiful things that I saw, which has been mimicked now, is white allies, warriors surrounding and taking the front line, protecting Black and brown members of our community, saying you have to come through me first to get to them. And that's what an ally means to me. That's what a friend means to me. And I've been moved by that, particularly in watching my home city, Richmond, Virginia, capital of the Confederacy, birthplace of American slavery, to see white warriors standing with us and in front of us to shield us. We need more of that. I think that's a starting point, not the end point, but the starting point. M, what's been beautiful for you?
Wow, so many things. So one, I want to point to the things that people don't get to see. So the amount of support from Black women who couldn't be out there with us, but have been there. So people sending messages, people making posts, people resharing, and people having those conversations back where they are has just been so beautiful, so incredible. And I know you see me and Brandi up there, but when people ask me, how do you come with so much power? Because I'm not by myself, right? So I got people joining me on the ancestral plane, but also on this plane, right? And so all the messages, all the love, we see you, girl, we got you, just let us know what you need, or yeah, I'll make you some copies. Where you want us to drop this food off? You want me to share whatever? Like, I think that has just been so incredible. And I think too often that kind of cultural organizing, that kind of Black women work doesn't get talked about in movement enough, but it really is the gas in the automobile, y'all. It really is the thing that's really making that engine go. And so just shout out to you all, but to also other Black women who've been in the fold and doing that. That's just been so beautiful and so inspiring. It's such a motivating force for me. The other thing that I'm really excited about is this new youth group that's forming, right? Impact Demand. I think it's so important anytime there's a whole generation of people being activated to join us in the resistance. So I'm just so happy about that. I'm like, whatever they want to do, go with it, you know? So I'm really inspired, and I think that that's really beautiful. I also think what's really beautiful is we've been able to really uplift what happens to Black women and girls and Black LGBTQI people when it comes to police violence and state violence that I think oftentimes get left out. So the fact that we were able to have a celebration party for Breonna Taylor, I thought was so
Yes.
beautiful. And for us to build the altar in defense of Black womanhood and defense of Black LGBTQ people and all Black people murdered by police violence just has been so beautiful and so inspiring to me. And also just throughout the city in our protests, how Breonna Taylor is one of the main chants, right? Like not an afterthought, not a side thought, how Black women and girls and messages about Black women and girls are painted on State Street. I mean, it's just been incredible. And I want to point to even like the incredible words that we have painted downtown. Like that was a Black woman who really helped drive and make sure we can also get that together in terms of like the design. So it's just incredible the amount of, it's just off the chain. So I'm most inspired and really find beauty in that.
There's so much beauty that is emerging from what is also very challenging. And if you haven't been down to State Street, you all go down and see the art that is really representing a piece of Madison that we don't see enough of. And I've heard people say that they feel more welcome in Madison in State Street than ever since the art went up on the walls and the artists who have been retained, including my own daughter who has painted a memorial to Tony Robinson, who we all still grieve and fight for justice for. Aaliyah has a question for you all, very much connected to the defund the police. And when we saw the big yellow letters on the street, we said, uh-oh, all right now. Help us understand what that is. Aaliyah, go ahead with the question.
Yeah, we talk about trusting Black women, and we trust you all. So there's many, even in our community, who are following you and saying, yes, defund the police, and have zero idea what that means. I've seen some beautiful images posted. Dr. Jasmine Zapata, who's on, posted a clarifying image. I've been tagged by Monique and like, here's what it means. But coming from your mouth, if you could clarify, and Brandi, you referenced it when you were talking about the beauty of it, what is defund the police mean? There's a lot of misunderstanding. So if you could just provide us some clarity so we know what we're supporting.
I'm going to make him start this conversation this time, and then I'm going to piggyback off her.
Mm-hmm. So we are abolitionists. And what that means as a value set is that we believe that we should not be using prisons and police to solve our issues. Like that's what it means at the bottom, at the heart of heart. And instead, we think we should be building and using life-affirming projects, initiatives, programs, institutions, cultures, et cetera, in place of conflict and in place of trying to address issues in society. So I'll give you an example. Outside of Freedom Inc.'s office, this is maybe now about a little over a year ago, maybe a little longer than that. There was a Black man who didn't have a home. And so he used the bathroom outside, and he was outside waiting for the food program to open up across the street. And the police was called on him, or maybe they just rode by, but either way, the police showed up and they jumped out and they confronted him. They, demonized him. Why'd you do that? Da, da, da. Put fear in him. They issued a citation to him and they arrested him and they took him to jail. Because the police and the prisons are there to protect the concrete. So they thought the great violence was that a piece of cement had urine on it. And they thought they needed to intervene on the behalf of the cement. We as abolitionists think that the great harm here is actually that this person doesn't have a home. And so to solve that issue, we don't actually want somebody to show up with a gun, with a rifle, with all of these weapons, with facial recognition, with surveillance, with the ability to cuff and put somebody in a cage, because that's what prisons are. We have to talk about them as cages and dungeons and put him there. We actually want community to say, wait a minute, our homie here need a place to live, right? We're not going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to put him in a cage or to keep somebody with the rifle patrolling him. We're instead going to use that money to develop housing with dignity. And so that's what's at the heart of it. So in terms of how we get there, many I mean, all around the country, there have been cuts to education, cuts to healthcare. I mean, the COVID-19 pandemic really revealed how terrible healthcare is for Black people, right? Both in preventative things and also in times of pandemic. And we don't have ventilators and just a bunch of stuff. We don't got good food. People can't develop a vaccine, but the military got 1 million tanks. I mean, we really showed where we invest, right? And so the reason and the call for the defunding police goes to the values in which I stated, but also I want people to understand how much money we spend on policing and military, right? How much money we spend. Instead of, and I mean, I'll give this local example. Last year, maybe it was this year, but I think it was last year, the school board was facing a $400,000 deficit, right, in order to try to meet the raises that the teachers were asking for. And by the way, educators are so important, and they should not be scraping by, not when it's this amount of wealth, right? But they are. The school board should have cut its contract with the police then. It should have said, we're not about to be paying no people in here to harm our kids. By the way, the only girls, right, that have been arrested by police are Black, no other racial group, right? So instead of us doing that, we are gonna take that $400,000 from them and directly put it in educator salary. They didn't, right? And so that's why we're saying defund the police. So defunding the police really means taking resources out of military, taking resources out of punishment, taking resources out of guns, out of mace, out of beating Janelle Laird, out of killing Tony Robinson, out of assaulting that 17-year-old boy in his home, the school resource officer, out of attacking that 11-year-old boy in the library, out of arresting Sierra Finkley after she defended herself from her attacker. It is taking money from that and saying, we don't need that. Putting money in housing, education, but also putting money in transformative things that actually get at the root of harm. So as I mentioned last time, I do domestic violence work, sexual assault work, and we actually want a solution that actually gets at the root, right? If somebody is causing harm, putting them in the cage doesn't make them less harmful, y'all. It don't work. It creates more harm, and then it re-releases them out to add to the level of harm capacity that was there before. So we actually want transformative abolitionist solutions to addressing the violence that we experience.
That is so clarifying on so many levels. And I'm so happy we are recording this call, because we are going to go back and listen to this continuously and continuously and continuously so that we can use the very precise language that you've used, because it makes it so clear and so unmistakably illuminating of what it really means on so many levels. You all who are listening, it's so important that we understand the issues and that we just don't read headlines. Headlines and, you know, the news would have you believing that defund the police means that we're going to eliminate police forces all over the country and there's not going to be any system of managing, you know, real crime or real, you know, disturbing things that are happening in our community. It doesn't mean that at all. Don't believe the hype. It means moving dollars away and doing this transformational work of investing and building in assets and capacities of community. That's a very important clarifying point. Brandi, what would you add to that?
I'm muted. Okay. So I would add that abolition is the result. That's the result. We're starting with the vision. So I just want to make it very clear that it is our vision and our goal to eliminate the whole need for policing, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a vision, right? We're starting the ripple effects to move towards that direction. And within the context of white supremacy, patriarchal capitalism, we have been conditioned to believe police are required for society to function. And the one thing we often are unaware of is that police is a military occupation in Black communities. It's just what it is, right? And it's covered and packaged under this idea of protecting and serving. But what we do know is that when Black people call the police, even if it's for a crime committed against them, it often goes wrong, right? When Black women are beat up, they end up going to jail. When you call for domestic violence, it end up being both people go to jail. Or you call and someone broke into your house, they end up arresting you, accusing you of being the burglar. So we must understand that this idea of policing has never been safe for us. It's never been accessible for us. It really is just us, right? It really is them policing everyone who fits outside the construct of white supremacy and what's considered a normal human being. So yes, we have to start somewhere, right? We have to start pushing our legislation, our mayor, right? And let me just say this, we have to be willing to take risks and call a spade, regardless of our relationship with that spade. Because our mayor specifically likes to play games, and she likes to play both sides. One minute she says she got Black lives, we're gonna work on defunding, we're gonna move towards community review board, making sure that there's a check and balance with the current system of policing. Because what we do know, you just can't remove the system altogether, right? Because that's not what we're saying. We're saying that we have to start moving towards the vision of abolition, the vision of no longer needing policing. But in order for us to do that, we have to start investing in people. We have to start investing in mental wellness, healthcare, education, opportunity, training, housing, every last necessity that goes along with being a human being, including clean air, including an environment not filled with toxins, right? All of that matters because it all impacts our ability, our brain's ability, our emotional intelligence, our social intelligence, our neurons in our brains, and ability of how they connect and how they see things and how things occur to people are all impacted by our environment, right? And that includes our air and water. So when you hear Black people out here saying environmental racism is real, it's real. And all of it contributes to what we will sometimes frame as maladaptive behaviors, right? Like we like to look at Black people and be like, well, that's not the best approach. Well, technically, if we're going to focus on what's not the best approach, we have to provide the context, right? We have to be willing to look at what's causing this behavior in our children, what's causing the trauma, what resources are available, what's our go-to. And because of the way our system is designed, our go-to has always been police. That's why we have them in our school acting as social workers, abusing our children, devaluing them, dismissing them, on top of the teachers doing the same thing. So then we send our children home. Our children go home from a day of traumatic experience. And then they go home to their parents and they go and say, fuck that teacher, forget this, I'm mad, forget this. And we're like, you're not gonna be acting like that with all these white folks. You better get your stuff together, compounding the trauma. So unless we understand what is happening around our kids in the context, we won't be able to provide them with a foundation and the tools and skills to heal, because we just can't continue the way we are. Educational gap is what it is for multiple reasons, not just, oh, we need new curriculum or we need new teachers. The whole damn system is fixed, right? How teachers are trained in these academia, university colleges in spaces grounded and founded in white being the normal and Black being anti-Black, right? And if we don't see that, if we are instructing our children in Black bodies to go to these education system or public education universities with this idea of achieving this white great American dream, we are delusional. And that's how we have to start moving. We have to start moving in a way where we understand how the very context of our society and design of our society keeps moving us further and further away from liberation and really being able to actualize, right? So when we speak of revolutionary thought and idea and abolition being one of those, right, is that we have to be able to say, well, dang, everything I've been taught with inside this context of white supremacy, patriarchal capitalism is rooted in anti-Blackness. It's rooted in my inferiority. And in order for us to flip that thing on the side, we got to move incongruent to it. We got to be anti everything it is. So that means our system has trained us to, let's talk about this, Sadia. Can we figure something out? We know you're funding our work. We know you're doing this, but we don't want to like be out there and put you in check because we don't want to jeopardize what it is, but we have to be willing to risk it because we can't continue, we meaning Black people and white allies and white warriors, we can't continue to move according to the design of the system. So I'm just going to say this and I'm going to finish up real quick. But one of the things that's happening currently, right? So Sadia made a job description for this auditor, right? And we did a whole panel on it to help people understand what the auditor position was, what the community review board is, and what is moving us towards, right? So she wrote the description went online, opened up application for a community review board, right? Which is like her trying to hurry up and move, right? While we're distracted in the streets. But she's like, okay, I'm doing this for Black people. Black people want this. They want us to hurry up and move. And that is the narrative that white people often tell us, especially when it comes to policy change and money. Because I've been in so many conversations, we gotta hurry up and get the money out, but then you hurry up and get it out, and the whole purpose is destroyed. Your intent and impact don't connect, right? And you're actually moving incongruent with what we said we are achieving. And if we are working to give Black people power, give access to resources to those who are most vulnerable, then we got to slow the hell down, right? And don't allow people to push policy and these procedures and legislations in a way that looks like it's for the people, but actually it's against the people. And that is what white people do often in a lot of spaces. And I'm just encouraging us to stand on the front line while you're in these systems, where it's a hospital or public education or MMSD and whatever system you work. If you see people hurrying up and not including the people that experientially impacted by them hurrying up in this policy, then that's when I'm gonna, just request and enroll you guys in like being like, no, we're gonna need to take another look at that. Because if we don't take another look at it, then we in essence create the same shit that we said that we wanted to impact. And whatever we create, and we are creating impossibilities, a paradigm is shifting outside of this construct of white supremacy, we must be diligent and intentional of looking at how we embody it and how it's embodied in that policy or legislation. It's all about power and community control of the police, of our schools, of our hospital systems, and every institution that Black bodies interact with ain't at the front and center of the conversation. Then we're just creating more of the same shit. And that is insanity in action.
Oh, we got lots of comments. This is an igniting comments from our listeners this morning. Tell us what we're hearing, Aaliyah. You're muted, by the way. Unmute yourself, girl.
Sorry, I was just doing the mic drop over here. No, there's just agreement. We're talking about just how the whole system is fixed, talking about the way that students are admitted, how faculty is hired, how traumatizing our secondary and post-secondary education is, how HBCUs are framed, how there needs to be investment in that. Piggybacking off of Flint still doesn't have clean water, and more than just Flint doesn't have clean water. Talking about the need for accountability. So there's just a lot of regurgitation and just committed to what you guys are saying. And yes, they're feeling you. So that's what's happening in the chat box.
Yeah, so our next question is really, say that again. No, go ahead.
Is that one of the things too we have to start understanding is our kids can't model what they don't see in us. Mm-hmm. So if we want warrior spirits in our kids that understand have a political education and a strategy and know that their life is more than just them, that we move, like whatever we do, it impacts us as a group because of white supremacy. If we're not passing that torch in education and strategy and analysis to our kids, then we're not doing our job, right? Like our kids have to stand on our shoulders as we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors. And we have to encourage our children to get on our shoulders, right? And allow them the opportunity to mess up and make mistakes and do what they do. But if we're not passing the baton, then we're gonna have to start all over again.
Yeah, and that reminds me of something we said on a call yesterday, that this generation of Black women are raising a nation of free Black children, of liberated Black children. We talked about compliance, the culture of compliance that our children are groomed into when they leave our homes and go out to the unsafe places of the world, and how we have to teach them in grade school how to conduct themselves, hold themselves, how to speak, don't speak too loud, and that we're done with that. We're done with that. We're raising a new generation who needs to be outspoken and confident in their God-given abilities to defend their own lives and their communities. And that is a mindset shift that I know as women, as mothers, as Black mothers, will take work on our part as we try to protect and shield our children. But they have to be trained up to fight for their rights and for their well-being. What you both spoke to just now really leads into this next question about Black women leaders. We know that we are operating in a space where we're taking on critical issues, sometimes considered controversial issues. There's a lot of risk. We take a lot of hits. We're at a lot of tables and a lot of spaces, and oftentimes we're the only one there speaking in defense of racial equality and a dismantling of old systems and the transformational realities you want to build. What can you say about the unique impacts of being Black woman-led organizations in driving system change? What are you facing and how are you navigating those conflicts outside of our community and even inside of our community as we do this very challenging work of transformation? Go ahead, Brandi. You're already lit up.
I know, I'm always trying to like just pause there. Like, you know, I just talked for 10 minutes. Okay, so what was the question again?
So as Black women leaders and as Black women-led organizations, you know, what are the special impacts or challenges you find yourself facing as you're leading and asking for transformational change that's risky for some, that's scary to some, that's controversial to many. Sometimes even those closest to you aren't comfortable with it. How do you navigate that territory and remain whole as you're taking on such a big battle?
Yeah, so I would just say the most important thing that I learned since, you know, being on the front line years ago around YGB is that you will get advice from everybody. Everyone will come up to you and tell you what you should be doing and how you should be doing it. And I've learned that God, my ancestors have given me skills and tools and a heart that knows which way I need to go, right? So I need to stay the course, stay rooted in who I know I am, and be fully self-expressed, right? And always keep the result in focus. What we learn in supporting healthy Black families is within the context of white supremacy, we are conditioned to react from a place of what's occurring to us, right? And what's occurring to us is really based on our past experience and trauma, right? And if what's occurring to us is based on trauma and past experience, then our actions is also rooted in that. And then the result of our actions end up relating back to the past and the trauma. And we continue to create this circle of dysfunction and toxicity without even knowing that we're creating it. So in the training that we do, we flip the equation. We say, always start with the result that you desire. Create your vision, stay the course, and focus on it. Because what happens is when you start with the result, then what happens next is what's occurring. And what's occurring then becomes created out of the now and not out of your past trauma and experience, opening up the possibility for infinite possibility, right? So you start with the result, it impacts how things are occurring, which leads to your actions. So your actions end up changing. So that is where I'm coming from. And I don't do this thing. I have people call and say, let me pray for you. I got a message from God. Look, I don't need your message from God because God speaks directly to me. I wake up with God on my heart. I wake up with my ancestors directing me. I wake up knowing that even though yesterday hurt, even though someone threw me under the bus and kicked me over the cliff, my ancestors picked me right back up, put me right back on that cliff and say, baby girl, we got work to do, right? So a part of this is in the process of like taking care of myself and healing and just being very intentional about like being self-aware, like what's happening inside of me, what am I feeling, and having space and people and using our group. Like our group is really like education, political education, strategy, decolonizing, using tools to heal, and creating a community support group. Because within our space, we cry, we yell, we vent, and then we hold each other accountable, right? So if someone says to us, well, I don't, for example, someone said, people always coming in my space bringing bad energy. People always out to get me, even though I give so much and do so much. And then we as a class challenge them to say, the one thing we learn in our class is whatever we project is within us, right? Whatever we embody anywhere, we embody everywhere. So if you're experiencing drama and negativity, what is it that you're projecting? Because if you're saying you don't trust people, what you're really saying is you don't trust yourself. So that is how we work. Like we work from this place of, okay, right? Be accountable for you first. Because when we start being accountable for us and healing our shit and being accountable for what we're creating around us, then we become powerful, right? Because if we believe in the spirit of our ancestors and the power of God, we know that you only have to have a faith of a side of a mustard seed, right? And that mustard seed is your self-awareness, right? And once you start working with yourself, you be, like I said, you get to the point where you say chair and that chair will fall while everybody else is looking at the hurdles. Oh, how you gonna do that? How you gonna do that? You got kids, you got this, you got that. You ain't gonna be able to do that. That ain't how my world works, right? I work from the place of higher vibration and higher frequency aligned with my ancestors. So as we move in this work, that is what I'm grounded and founded in. So when one person, like sometimes, you know, as you move in your power, people want to file complaints. It be your people. And that's the most hurtful thing, is when Black people come for you, right? And you know that your reach for them was really in good intention, good heart, right? Like I'm standing for transformative justice. That means that I'm standing in love with my people, and I'm walking and talking this idea that we don't throw Black people under the bus no matter what, right? Like we handle our shit as a family behind closed doors, and we squash it. Like we do our restorative justice, and we figure out how things are occurring, and we get healing in it. But even if you stand for that, there's going to be the devil in the darkness that show up that's going to throw gas on you. And when they throw gas, you just got to remember what it is that you're creating. What is the result you're looking for? If I say I'm teaching and modeling transformative justice for my people and creating leaders and personal change, then I got to model it. And in that modeling, there's going to be moments where I don't want to hold on, that I have to cry and scream and just allow myself to be vulnerable. And guess what? I'm okay with that too. I'm okay with whoever I am in the moment that I'm in it. And sometimes I might cuss somebody out and have to come back and be like, that's not who I say I am and who I'm working to be. So let me acknowledge that and acknowledge the impact and do my best to never do that shit again, and be very intentional, because this work don't mean you won't fall. The work means that you'll be totally accountable for you and work on self-awareness and realize that this isn't a light switch. The journey for healing for Black people, we carry 500 years of multi-generations of trauma and oppression, and it gets us to lash out on each other. And we have to start with healing ourselves, because when we start healing ourselves, then we can have compassion for all the nonsense that's gonna kick up in the dirt. So that's really how I feel like we live it, we embody. Urban Triage is Urban Triage. We're for healing, transformative justice, and equipping Black people with the skills and tools to navigate outside of this context of white supremacy, patriarchal capitalism.
What would you add to that as a Black woman leader, unique challenges and how you stay whole and focused through those challenges?
So we want to get into it, huh?
Well, we got 6 minutes to get into it and to get out of it. And we got a one little fun exercise we wanted to do to engage you all and others. So give us the quick and dirty version for today.
Yeah, I'll hit the corner of it. Okay, so one, I want to say that, you know, I can't think of a social movement where Black women's leadership wasn't pivotal. Mm-hmm. And I can't think of an issue that wasn't transformative or that didn't require somebody to push it through or knock something down that wasn't Black women. And so I think the same is true here. And I bring that up to say, you know, I mean, just to speak directly, because, you know, I'm talking to you. So yes. Just to speak directly, I have in some ways been disappointed by some of the Black men leaders here, just flat out. I think that many of them are the beneficiaries of radical women, of women who shake shit up, make things happen, but have been naysayers, have been gatekeepers, and even have been resistors, you know? And so I've just frankly been, I mean, I like to speak a little bit about from IGB to where we are now. Yeah, there's so much appreciation for Black men. And I want to be really clear, I'm not anti-Black men. What I am is pro-Black, and that includes all Black people.
All right.
And there's just such this appreciation for Black men, and they get lifted up and get pointed to as experts in things that they're not even experts in. I'm a policing expert, right? How you calling him? What do you know about the police? Okay. So, you know, we get discounted, we get dismissed, and even it's almost chastising. And so this is why I think it's really important that we understand patriarchy, right, in terms of what its impact is in culture and also structure, because oftentimes these men are propped up as fathers, and we grown, and they talking to us like we're children, right? Like young, like who you talking to, you know? So I think it's like, I think there are some things that need to be mended there, some things that need to come, you know, full circle. I'll also point to just some of the attacks that I see Brandi experience, and I know that she gets targeted because she's a woman, right? I know they come for her in a particular way because she is a woman. Because if they saw her as a man, I think they would think twice before they came at her in particular ways. And I am against all forms of gender-based violence against Black women. So I reject that, I denounce that, and I'm not cool with that in any kind of way. And so I think that part of the challenge is the ways that we have to continuously fight to assert our leadership, right? We the ones in the streets. Y'all see us. How you calling him?
Yes.
So I think that there's so much of that. The other thing that I want to point to, the reason why I think Black women leadership is important is because we're more expansive in our views, right? Mm-hmm. So when we're trying to move for Black liberation, we want to fight against policing and education. We also want to end sexual violence, right? We're also thinking about how children get reared up. We're also thinking about the care of our folks, health, wellness, wholeness, and a bunch of other things that get relegated to the periphery when masculine or really misogynistic practices and values are at center. The other thing that I want to point to as a gay person, one of the things that's inspiring to me about this moment is an opportunity for all different types of Black women to be in conversation with each other. Yes. So there are people now that are able to work with me who at first were not feeling me because I'm gay, just to put it out there, right? And so I think that there's an opportunity and a healing and a mending that is happening amongst us as all different types of Black women, right? As LGBT, as straight, as cis, and a bunch of other stuff. And so I'm really inspired by that. And this is also a calling in to Black women who may have had a challenge with Black gay leadership. Let's be in lockstep, right? This is an invitation in. We are on the same page, fighting for the same thing. Let us be together, right? And let's be willing to be transformed and challenge our own value systems. And so how do I deal with that? I stay in community and I fight, right? I understand that the work includes the transformation of myself and also the transformation of others. And the other thing that I do not do is act so brand new that I do not remember who I was, right? There was a lot poured into me that helped me be the M that you now see today. And I see it as part of my work, right? To be an educator as much as I am a challenger, right? And so for people, and I'm saying this in particular, to Black men, we have to always see ourselves as learner, be willing to transform ourselves in the service of the work, right? And those are the words of my friend Mary Hooks. And so that's what I'll say there.
Oh, we are on fire right now. We have 1 minute, and I'm going to ask you all, as I did last week, to hang on with us if you can. If you are able to stay on, because we will wrap up in about 5 minutes. There's so much happening in the chat. There have been questions from Facebook Live. There are comments that are so powerful. Say it, Brent.
It's a 90-minute conversation, Lisa.
We're going to change this. We're going to shift this. It just starts getting, it gets really deep at this point every time, and then we find ourselves rushing to leave. There are 3 questions, but just to hear us, ashe, ashe, ashe. Yes, we as Black leaders start to trust each other. We will be better to heal from self-hatred and get stronger. Accept responsibility and make change. There was one really powerful comment just acknowledging how we have to navigate workplaces. Sometimes Black leaders don't speak out as we should because we worry about white gaze and fragility, how will my promotion be affected? It's been self-protection, sad but true, but we're moving beyond that. There are questions around where can we send our kids to school? Homeschooling, I homeschooled my sons through middle school into high school before we moved back here because I needed to do that to save my sons from the encroaching forces that our public schools are often to our children. It was very difficult, but it was necessary. Where are safe places in Wisconsin for our Black youth? Why do you think it's hard to remove non-essential positions from high schools? I don't know if we have time to answer those questions today, but do you want to field any one of them very briefly? The last question, yeah. Why do you think it's hard to remove non-essentials RSO from high schools?
Yeah, Brandi.
And brief, we're taking the 1 minute answer to that question.
Give me 1 minute. Okay, good luck.
1 minute, summarize.
Okay, I'm gonna do my best. So it's important, as I always say and often say, is white supremacy, patriarchal capitalism is the design of the chessboard. we're playing chess, y'all. And everything that's created from that chessboard is rooted in certain attributes. Paternalism, right? Top to bottom, black and white, there's no gray area, quantity over quality, attributes such as it's conflict. We don't want to have conflict, right? Like that is the white way, right? Especially the white liberal, right? We don't want to have conflict. Can we just make this go away? But the human beingness actually works in opposition of that. The human beingness and the humanness that we all embody is made up of feelings. We feel things, right? We sense things, right? Like, so if we continue to live in a world that is currently constructed under white supremacy, we don't even get the opportunity to be human. So when it comes to removing something like SROs from the schools, all of a sudden the people in charge, paternalism, says this is going to cause conflict. They don't like conflict with the police, and this is going to cause conflict with white people who believe in some black people, right? Because again, white supremacy ain't about color. Everybody embodies anti-blackness, right? So it's like this fear of conflict with people who say, well, what about the people who run in guns? But if you really think about that, only people that's running in schools shooting up anything is white kids, right? So there's like also dissonance within that context of white supremacy, patriarchal capitalism. So whatever we're trying to critically think about and ask ourselves why this has happened, please do me a favor, refer back to white supremacy, patriarchal capitalism, understand and develop analysis of those attributes of the very foundation of what everything is created, right? I refer you to Bell Hooks. I refer you to Dr. Francis Cress. I refer you to Marcus Garvey. I refer you to the pedagogy of the oppressed. I refer you to read, build analysis, don't reject what you don't understand. Get an understanding and then come out and be like, I don't think that's right, but that's my answer in 5 minutes.
All right, I want y'all to know there's already requests for a part 3. So I'm gonna put it out there publicly in front of everybody to witness that we asked you publicly if we can do a part 3, because there are so many questions like, how do we better support Black queer leaders? How do we build this great alliance as Black women? We've got comments that say, this space has given me a refresher, has given me renewed strength and energy. We need to have another conversation, but before we go, and thank you to everybody on Facebook who is with us in this and has been hanging in there and asking your questions. We are going to get to your questions, but part 3, can we hear a commitment from our guests today for a part 3? We got a little exercise that Aaliyah put together, and I want us to do this before we go because we want everybody's full participation in this. We're going to ask some questions, and we want ladies joining us to put your answers in the chat, but we want you, Brandi and M, to answer these as we go. Go ahead, Aaliyah. These are some prompts.
I might need some help. I'm trying to ask the question and put it in the chat box.
You want me to ask the question?
Yeah, you ask the questions. I'll put it in the chat box. And Brandi and M, stay off mute so that you can be answering.
All right. So, what's your answer? I have 0 time or patience for.
Bullshit.
M. What's your answer, M?
I guess it's Brandi's.
We all agree. We all agree. No time for bullshit. I am grateful for.
The fake ones. I like that song. No time for fake ones.
No time for fake ones. Ladies, what you saying to us in there? Oh yes, BS. Same, my people. Come on, y'all. Talk to us. What do you have no time for? I am grateful for.
I am grateful for the strength and wisdom of my ancestors.
All right.
All the Black mamas.
Woo. Yes, I will not quit until
I die.
I am free until we free. Yes. Woo. Come on, Em. Did you say free too? Did y'all say that in unison?
I said that, you know.
One at a time. Come on.
Okay.
I am proud of M.
My children.
Yes, Brandi.
Yeah, my children.
Your children. I am taking care of me by
Going for a walk.
Yeah. By exercising, taking vitamins, and allowing myself time outside of the work.
Yes, we are hearing. Grateful for being willing to learn. Grateful for my children. Grateful for us. Grateful for sleeping. I am taking care of me. I will not quit until this race is won. I will not quit until the work is done. I will not quit until we're free. I'm grateful for faith. What are you most proud of? What gives you the most hope right now?
I think what gives me the most hope is that we've caused across the country and the world this chanting of Black Lives Matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
No one can go about their day anymore without acknowledging that we matter. And now we need to take it to the next step.
Yes,
What gives me the most hope is some of the toughest conversations I'm having behind closed doors with Black people around hurt that we've caused each other. So healthy ways to deal with conflict. That gives me the most hope.
Yes, everybody on here, open your video if you're still there. Let's wave to our guest speakers. Let's thank them profusely for their time today. Let's thank them for that elevation and illumination and the transformational energy that we're all walking away from this call. We want to acknowledge Brandi and M, that we see you as not just local leaders, not only as statewide leaders, you are international and national leaders for us. We want you to know that we understand how your local efforts are transforming many things. We are in the seat of our state's capital, and all of the work that you are doing is highly visible, and it is shifting the conversation. It is driving change, and we thank you for your role in that. We wrap you in care. We wrap you in grace. We are here to protect you, to stand with you. We hope you know that. We honor you, and for everyone on this call, and to Brandi and M, I just have a few words to say. It's a quote from another sister in the wellness journey. When I rest, I can rise. When I rest, I can meet even the shattered moments from a place of wholeness. We ask you all to continue to rest as you fight, to heal as you fight, and to remember the quote of our ancestors: know thyself, love thyself, heal thyself. Our strength is in ourself, and we are the answer to our own liberation. We thank you for being here today. Keep healing as we lead. We love you, and we will see you back here next week for part 3.
Got you.
Bye.
In the calendar. Thank y'all. Love and power.
Love